Hey everybody, very excited for this. This is my first Limud of a series of Limudim, of teachings and learnings that I wanted to share with everyone out there. But I first want to say thank you to everyone who replied to my WhatsApp invitation. Many people joined the group, and more, I imagine, will interested in just learning something, whatever that might be. So it's a big honor, a big zchut, and I'm very excited to get underway with you all. My name is Leor Sinai, coming at you from Tel Aviv, Israel. And what we're going to talk about today is about prayer, is about tefillah, is about what it means to pray. We are living in interesting times these days where people are searching for answers. The wealth that society has distributed, the wealth that people have gained, the successes that we've all had, and yet we find that many of us are still not thoroughly happy, perhaps not happy at all. Of course, recognizing, as we all know, that money can't buy happiness. But aside from that, there have been many challenges that we've been faced with over the last couple of years with COVID and Corona around the world. And of course, our own personal challenges. And I use the word challenges because there are opportunities to overcome challenges. We can overcome challenges. It's about the mind frame that we're in. It's about the space that we find ourselves in. And I think part of that has to do with prayer. Part of that has to do with speaking to the universe. Part of that has to do with believing that when you speak to the universe speaks back. Right? When you ask God of a question, you will get an answer. The question is if you recognize the answer that comes your way. The question is if you recognize the opportunity, if you peel away at the layers, right, the klipot, to use a Kabbalistic term, the barriers that distract us from seeing that which is right in front of us, the opportunities that lie right in front of us, which is often the mistake we make when we're looking for answers to questions. And that's a big problem. And so I think that prayer or true prayer, understanding what prayer actually is and means, can kind of help us overcome the challenges we face and potentially even find answers to the questions that we have if we truly ask the questions, literally asking the questions. And then, of course, need to be open to the answers, which come to us in a whole variety of ways, from a meeting you have with someone to an email you just got as you're about to ask this question, like, what am I supposed to do now? I'm not going down this career path. I want to do another career path. I want to buy this or not. I want to buy this home. I want to move to another city, state, perhaps country. A relationship I have. Should I continue with this relationship? Literally, these questions that we ask, the answers come to us. The answers come to us in so many different ways. The question is, again, if we're prepared to receive the answers to those questions. So what I'm going to have with us here for this first teaching is Netivot HaShalom, which is the Slonimer Rebbe, Rabbi Noach Berezovsky, who is a Holocaust survivor, a Hasidic rabbi, Hasidut coming from the school of thought that started with the Baal Shem Tov. Who I have here on my library shelf as well, the Baal Shem Tov in the mid-1800s who created Hasidut, which essentially on one foot, al regel echad, is the integration of Jewish mysticism or Kabbalah, spirituality, with halacha, Jewish law, a way of life, trying to connect the two fields and kind of give purpose and meaning to the way we live our life, so that the mitzvot that we commit, the halacha that we live by, the commandments that we take upon ourselves, the observances and so on and so forth, whether it's tzedakah, keeping kosher, and the list goes on, have an actual spiritual connotation to it, a connection that is above and beyond what we see and feel here in the world of below. The idea, of course, is reuniting our broken world, or the world of above and the world of below. So in Netivot HaShalom, the Rebbe talks about avodah shebalev zot tefillah, that the work, let's call it the offerings, from the sacrificial offerings of temple days, the offerings that we provide from our hearts, our actual prayer. And he talks about mitzvot asal itpalel bechol yom sheneemar. He takes a verse from Moses Maimonides, one of the world-renowned philosophers of all time, the Rambam, Moses Maimonides, and he takes this verse out of the book of Shmot, Exodus, chapter 23. Ve'avadetem et Hashem Elokeichem. You should work, you should labor, you should offer, work towards, work to God, your God. From this approach, it was understood that work, labor, such a labor is actual tefillah, is prayer, working from your heart, right? Working God. How do you support? How do you work God? It's through your heart. It's through prayer. And mitzvah zokachi sheyehe adam mitpalel umitchanen bechol yom. Such is the case that a person needs to be in his prayer, in his or her prayer, pleading every day, mitchanen bechol yom, umagid shivcho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and saying the praises of God, the Blessed One, holy be Him. Ve'achar kach shoel tzrachav, and then after this, you ask about your own needs, right? So what they're beginning to talk about is a system, right? We start with praising God, with pleading with God, then praising God, and then asking God of our needs. And you see this in the Shmona Esrei, the Amidah, that's prayed 3 times a day every day, morning, afternoon, and evening, Shacharit, Mincha, Ve'arvit. You literally ask what you need. As I said earlier, right? You want to put your questions out there. Has to be asked. You have to come about and ask these questions, right? A clarity to these things. Ki b'Torah הקדושה יש ענייני מצוות מעשיות כציצית ותפילין וכדומה. Because a little clarity here is that in the Torah there are, according to what the Rebbe here is explaining, there are those mitzvot of asiyah, of actually doing things, like mitzvot of tzitzit and tefillin. Those are actual materials, those are actual things that we take upon ourselves, that we do, that we wear, for example, in this case, that according to this, we're actually doing the deeds of God, what God expects us to do. And then you have other items that are called avodah, which is labor, but more specifically in this case, offerings, right? Like sacrificial offerings, and it's avodat korbanot, the sacrificial offerings. V'tfilah, and prayer, shayechet le'inyan avodah. Prayer is related to the issue of avodah, of these offerings. What used to be sacrificial offerings today is prayer. Let's keep that in mind. Right, prior to the destruction of the Second Temple and the whole First Temple period, we worshipped God through sacrificial offerings. The idea of prayer, the notion of using our words, of speaking with God, was developed thereafter the destruction. Right, so sacrificial offerings became prayers instead of offering animals and such. And if you are thinking that in these mitzvot you do not need kavanah, you do not need intention, but tefillah, prayer, is the kind of work of offering that comes from your heart. Prayer comes from your heart. And therefore our rabbi decrees, the decree is that any prayer that is not with full intention is not considered prayer. And if you prayed without full intention, now I'm talking about formal prayer on a day-to-day basis, on Shabbat morning, every afternoon, etc. If you prayed without full intention, you got to go back and start praying from the start. Ki hatfilah hi avodah shebalev, ubelo kavanah ein zo avodah klal. Without full intention, what you've done is akin to nothing. Even though you might have spent the time, it means nothing. If your intention is not behind the prayer, the questions you ask, the thanks and the praises, right? Modeh ani, waking up in the morning and appreciating the fact that you're awake, that you're alive, that you have oxygen to breathe, a roof over your head. What else do we need? If there is no full intention behind it, it's as if you didn't do a thing. There is no intention, there is no prayer. You got to go back and do it all over again. And I think it's vital to think about these things, especially for those of us who go to shul every Shabbat or pray every morning, who might know the prayer book, right? The Siddur by heart by now. Many of us know the Shacharit and the Amidah and Tefillot HaShachar all by heart. We've been doing it for years, as well as on Shabbat mornings. Going to shul, you'll look around, you'll see people just moving their lips, but looking around, looking at their watches, looking out the window, checking out what's for Kiddush, while they're sort of reciting words or the prayers. I can't imagine having full intention in that case. Just because you know it by heart doesn't mean that you're praying with full kavanah, with full intention. In fact, I remember studying when I was in rabbinical school that even if you do know the prayers by heart, the tefillah by heart, still you ought to have your siddur, your prayer book open. And not only that, you should be whispering, you should be saying the actual words, but very quietly. You don't want to bother anyone else around you who's in meditation or prayer, but you should actually say them in your heart, but with your words, so that you're focused and that your intention is there. Just because you know all these things by heart doesn't mean that God hears you more, or that the universe, or whatever you want to call it, the nature, the force, hears you more than someone who is not fully versed in prayer, traditional prayer from our prayer books, or knows all the prayers by heart. It really is all about your intention. It's about being fully present. You're standing before the king. If you were invited to stand before a king or a queen, right, Queen Elizabeth or some other king that's alive these days, how would you show up? Would you show up with your hands in your pockets? Would you be slumping over? Would you be standing up straight and tall? Would you be speaking from the heart? How would you be approaching this human being on earth? Now here we're talking about the King of Kings. Or if you don't want to call it the King of Kings, the power, the force, the universe, the creator of everything that we exist off of, breathe, live off of. How are you going to approach this? Without full intention? Without some level of respect, admiration, appreciation, thanks, and praises? Of course you are. So keep that in mind. And know that no matter how observant you are, what level of observance you have, or nothing at all, no matter whether or not you think you know how to pray or not. By the way, these sidurim, these are words that were put together. They're not from the Torah. They're not originally made by God. This is made by man, right, to create a formal framework for us to have a vehicle, a tool, which, by the way, is very helpful. But nonetheless, with or without a prayer book, with or without these words, prayer, true questions, true intent can only come from the heart. It has to be real. So when you wake up in the morning and you say, whether it's the full verse of Modeh Ani Lefanecha, or whether it's just thank you, God, for what I have, thank you to the universe, thank you to the force, thank you to nature for all that we have in this world, for the oxygen, for the air we breathe, the water we drink, the roof over our heads, the food that we eat, not taking things for granted, having full intention, full kavanah. That is the most important, most vital element of full prayer. And as far as I'm concerned, and I'll tell you from my experience, and maybe others will agree with me, of ensuring that your voice, that your questions, that your needs are being answered, and they will. Trust me, there's something out there listening. Whatever works for you, that's fine. But it's out there. There's a force, there's an energy, there's a force field, there's a creator, there's a framework out there, there's something out there, call it the universe, that is listening. All you need to do is put it out there. Be with full intent, be transparent, be honest, ask your questions in your heart of hearts, in a journal, write it down, and be sure that you are empowering yourself to receive the answers to those questions. Because what good is it? What good are your questions if you're not available to receive, to reveal, likabel, kabbalah, right? To receive the answers to your questions. So peel away all the distractions, and the answers to your questions, the opportunities to overcome any challenge you have in your life will reveal itself to you, but you gotta identify it, and you gotta jump on it, and you gotta listen to your kishka, to your intuition, because it's telling you you're on the right path, you're on the wrong path, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong. Stay away from these kinds of people. Here are some of the people you want to be close to. Listen to yourself. It's that spark inside the kishke, right? It's the intuition. And that'll help you identify opportunities to overcome the challenges you might face, and also be able to receive, to reveal, lekabel, answers to your tough questions, especially now in this month of Elul. Ani ledodi v'dodi li, I am for my beloved and beloved is for me. This is the relationship we have with the creator of all creators, the king of kings, the universe, Hayekum. As we approach and prepare ourselves for Rosh Hashanah, the new year, we want to start with a clean slate. We ask for forgiveness from our family, from our friends, people we may have offended, even by accident. And we do a lot of self-reflecting on ourselves, and we're looking for questions and answers to our questions. And this is the time to do just that. So I wish you all a wonderful month of Elul in preparation for Rosh Hashanah. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Consider sharing this link with others, this YouTube clip, with others as well who might be interested in learning. I promise to keep this to between 15 to 20 minutes once a week, where we'll be learning a variety of topics. It's a pleasure to share with you. And I look forward to growing this audience, and maybe even evolving into a framework that is more engaging. Maybe it's a virtual platform that is more lively, where we can learn together and communicate with one another. So wishing you all the best. Love and light from Israel. Am Israel Chai.